of natural resources. Although there's no specific provisions on in the Constitution on cross-border resources, but we all know that they have to be used sustainably and in a manner that will not harm the other jurisdictions. So I'll allow my panelists to introduce themselves. We have 1 hour. It is now 2:30. We must finish the discussion by 3:30 on the dot, because there are other functions that we have to do. So I'll allow my panelists to come to the podium to introduce themselves. Karibu, Judge.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. I'm Judge Lucy Bugwa, Judge of Environment and Land Court, based in Milimani from last year, September. But there before, I was based in Meru for 4.5 years or so. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I am Kivenji Kiragu. I'm the chairperson of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, which is the secretariat of the National and County Governments Coordinating Summit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, delegates. My name is Hamilton Parsina. I'm the assistant in charge of lands, physical planning, housing, urban development, and municipalities, Kajiado County.
Asante, good afternoon. All protocols observed. Hamjambo nyote. My name is Mureithi Kangi, the Principal Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. Our main function and role in government is to coordinate national functions. I am here to represent the CS Interior and National Administration, Professor Kindiki. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can give them a round of applause. I want to welcome our Honorable DCJ. Feel welcome. We are happy you've joined us. So as I indicated, we are focusing on the resolution of disputes in respect to the Convention on Management and Sharing of National and Cross-Boundary Resources. I'll go straight to the questions that our panelists will address. The first issue that I would want our Honorable Judge, Lady Justice Lucy Mbugwa, to respond to is as follows. Having been the ELC judge in Meru, noting that Meru and Isiolo experience cross-border clashes, how can the court engage other actors in addressing national and cross-border resources conflict? There's a mic. You can answer just from there, Judge.
Thank you very much, moderator, my colleague. I've already introduced myself, Judge Bugwa, Judge of ELC Court, based in Milimani. And I want to say that the common theme running in this conference is that the citizen of Kenya wants their cases to be heard expeditiously. Even during the breakouts, that is something that was we were picking. And what can we do as the court, as actors in the justice system, to ensure that the cases are heard expeditiously and that we not only resolve disputes, but we reduce those conflicts and even prevent the disputes from occurring. With the engagement of the stakeholders, we believe that there is something we can pick from this conference so that we can be able to tackle that issue of reducing, preventing, and resolving conflicts, because our resources should not be a curse. We are very much aware that in some regions, the natural resources which are found in some countries, they have turned out to be a curse. In Kenya, we have seen conflicts that have persisted through the decades, and it is because of competing interest in land rights, failure to embrace environmental justice. And so I will be taking you through the points of concern which we can be able to pick and apply the same to ensure that we reduce these conflicts. Some of these processes are formal, others are informal, others are cut-crossing. To start with, I would say the best platform is the multi-sectoral approach. And that multi-sectoral approach is the CUC platform and the bar bench committees. Somebody was saying that we have CUC committees where people just come and we read the minutes, we confirm the same, and they become mundane. The ELC, since for some time now, has been able to establish our court users committees, meaning that we shall be able to bring on board the relevant stakeholders who should be participating in that CUC. Those CUCs should be robust and relevant. Anyone participating in the CUCs should be having something to bring a solution on those conflicts. On this note, I would say that we have conflicts in areas where the land is not registered, where registration of land is undergoing. And these are the areas where we see flare-ups. Let me mention Marsabit, Isiolo, some place in Narok called Oleposimorui, or something of that sort. If we can have the people who are in charge of that registration process on board the CUCs, particularly the people called the community land registrars, the adjudication officers, the people who are doing mappings, demarcation, they should be part of our CUCs so that we get to know what is this problem. Is there something we can do to be able to resolve the problem? Another area that we find we need some kind of engagement with our stakeholders is on dispute resolution mechanisms. You find that when cases are filed in court, they take a detour in our court. They mark time, but they are not supposed to be in the ELC court because there are other dispute resolution mechanisms established under the various statutes. We have the National Environmental Tribunal, we have the Energy Regulation Tribunal, we have the Water Appeals Board, Physical Planning Committees, we have even a committee under the Intergovernmental Relations Act, which is supposed to deal with the disputes between counties and the national government. These cases come, and the issue of where they should be handled is not dealt with, just very quickly. They can even take 3 years, or because the preliminary objection on where those cases should be handled can be raised at any point of the trial. What happens is that now if that preliminary objection is raised, the court has to determine the same. And if the matter ought to be handled in another platform, the case is referred back to those platforms. Let me just give an example of such cases, maybe one or two. When oil was being, there was exploration of oil in Turkana. The county government of Turkana went to court against the NLC as the respondent on the issue of acquisition of that land where the oil was to be extracted. And when the matter was filed in court with the Turkana County government as a complainant, the court stayed the matter because the court found that actually the national government was involved, and so the dispute ought to be resolved by that committee under the Intergovernmental Relations Act. And I'm happy I've seen Mr. Kithinji He's from that department. He'll enlighten us more. I think I would pose the question, how many of us even know these platforms where these disputes can be resolved? What is the modus operandi of approaching those platforms? The stakeholders can come together in the court so that we see how the visibility of those platforms, so that people don't come to court and then so much time is wasted and they go back to the platform which is supposed to resolve those disputes. I have in mind another case, that is the case involving coal mining in Mui Basin in Kitui. The case was done by the High Court judges, but one of our judges was a counsel in that case. And what happened is that the EIA had not been completed. That is, the environmental impact assessment had not been completed. Yet you can see that the judges went into so much details. It was even a 3-judge bench. So much resources were put in that case. But just because the EIA had not been completed, the judges could not give a final determination. Although that case was finalized, the Turkana case was stayed. So I believe this is an opportunity for the actors in the justice system, especially those ones who have platforms to resolve disputes, to be more visible or to interact with the court so that we find ways of how they can be more visible. Another method or point of consideration is on mediation. This is something that the courts readily do, ensuring that cases don't have to go to full throttle in court. They can be resolved as fast as possible. I have in mind the court-annexed mediation, which has not been rolled in the entire country, but that is not a bar from having mediation in the cases. I've talked to some judges, several judges. They have told me that they are already doing the mediation even without the court-annexed mediation. I remember in the context of the Meru-Isiolo conflicts, I was able to do mediation in the case concerning the fencing to ensure that the animals don't interact with the human beings. That was the human-wildlife conflict case, and we were able to resolve it without going to full trial. Another point which was mentioned in details, I'll just mention the same, is AJS, which is a concept that we have already been told by Professor Judge Gugi, Court of Appeal. If we can implement AJS, we shall be able to reduce our conflicts. And the beauty with the mediation and AJS platforms is that we not only resolve the disputes, but we are also able to prevent the conflicts. In the context of where I was working, the AJS was in place in Isiolo, and the committee members of that AJS were able to apply the same. All I remember telling them is that perhaps it would have been good to document the cases they were able to resolve, even for purposes of reference, engaging the progress of that method of dispute resolution. Other powers or other platforms that can be used don't necessarily have to be in the realm of statutory platforms. They can be informal setups. On this one, I have in mind, again, a multi-sectoral approach, which is targeted. What we are having today, I don't believe this is a CUC platform. It is a multi-sectoral approach, which is targeted, meaning that in the area where we operate or we work, we can find out we can make a need assessment to find out which stakeholder is very crucial to resolve a particular dispute. On this point, I have in mind something that we were doing Meru and Isiolo. In that region, one of the biggest conflict revolved around human-wildlife conflict. And we were able to partner with the KWS outside the platform of the court users committees. And in that regard, what we carried out were sensitization programs between the judges, the magistrates, and the officers of KWS. And seeing is believing, because we were actually taken to the actual sites where this problem was. We were taken up to where the river Tana is. It borders several counties: Tana River County, Kitui County, Meru and Isiolo. We were seeing the national park, the Meru National Park. And what we saw was degradation of a magnitude I am not able to explain. It is, you have to see to believe. And we were actually taken to the site, and we found that the national park had been converted into grazing areas where there were cattle, goats, and everything, all animals were there. There were even settlements. And with that in mind, when dealing with those issues of degradation, the judges, the magistrates were more enlightened on that issue. Another area that the court and the actors can look upon is training, joint trainings, particularly on areas of complex issues and scientific issues. Judges and magistrates and lawyers went to school to study law, but we are faced with complex issues of climate change, issues concerning mining, and this issue has been brought out by several speakers, including our presiding judge, and I believe that issue has been picked up. Another point we can do is to be inviting experts in our courts as amicus curiae. These are, I have seen Katiba Institute has been very good in that area, but we can be inviting more experts in those technical areas. You know, people like the geologists, the anthropologists, the environmental experts. They can assist us to give a more enlightened decision. If you were to read that decision concerning the coal mining in Kitui, you will find that there were reports which were presented to the court that were very, very technical. And they were even contradictory. I would believe that if a judge or a magistrate is enlightened in that area, they would be in a better position to resolve such disputes. Another point one can take is having peace initiatives in the regions. We cannot leave the resolution of disputes to the courts. Let us all have some entities spearheading peace initiatives. In Isiolo, again, I remember it was the AJS, which was at the forefront of spearheading those peace initiatives. We have seen them in other areas like Pokot. We have seen whether it's Nyumba Kumi or what, anything that can prevent or reduce conflicts would be welcome. Finally, I would say that we have to be innovative and embrace anything and any process that would be used in order to prevent, to reduce, or to resolve conflicts. One of them is harnessing technology, where we can be hearing our expert evidence even from afar. Things like maps, the land officer who was telling us how they are doing the cadastral. They can be giving those evidence, that evidence from the comfort of their desks. Also a benchmarking, and that does not mean going outside the country or using a lot of resources. You can even benchmark virtually in order to get the best practices from whichever county or from whichever court. And finally, I would say that we can also engage each other on case management so that we resolve our disputes through the quickest way possible, but fairest method. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Mbugua is the one who trained me on case management, and she's very passionate about expeditious disposal of cases. What I've picked from your presentation is that we must focus on reducing, preventing, and resolving disputes, and not just resolving them. The issue of multi-sectoral approach that is targeted, engaging our stakeholders, and ensuring that we uphold the value of public participation. You've also talked about benchmarking and documenting AJS. Just as a follow-up in 1 minute, what has been the input of other actors in ensuring that that matters are resolved expeditiously, in your view? The other actors in the justice sector concerning cross-boundary resources, conflict management.
Thank you very much. What I would say is that some of the actors were very robust, very vibrant with us. I've already mentioned the KWS, the forest services. I should have mentioned even other places that were partnering. That is the Lewa Conservancy, Ngaredare area. But I would say that the counties who are very important for this kind of progress, they are missing in action. So this is a challenge to them to be more vibrant in that area. Other people who are very helpful, I'd say, is the lawyers. They embraced these issues. The land registry also joined us halfway the process when we were in Meru. But we never got the input of the land adjudication officers. But I believe and have already mentioned that these are very crucial people in giving us insight on unregistered land, how it is handled, how it is used, and the land which is undergoing registration, particularly in areas of community land. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We can keep an applause for that. Yes, Judge has given us her experience on the border of Meru and Isiolo as a judge in those areas. We'll now move to Mr. Kithinji Kiragu, the chairperson, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. And would wish to hear your response on how can the IGTRC work with the ELC to ensure a robust model of safeguarding national and cross-border resources is realized. How do we ensure that that model of robust safeguarding of those resources is realized? Thank you so much. You can, I hope you have a mic.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Facilitator, distinguished guests. I will just make a few observations in terms of partly even explaining the mandate of the IGRTC, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. Many people in the devolution space who are supposed to know it always have a problem with our acronym. And I'll just make one reflection which has been alluded to by Justice Honorable Ruth Mbugua in terms of how earlier in the morning session we had Professor Justice Goge make a very elegant and passionate articulation of the enormous benefits that arise from use of alternative mechanisms to all parties, because sometimes, you know, a lot of people go to the formal judicial process in the anticipation that they will win, but again, in many of these disputes, everybody is a rooster because a judicial process for the protagonists is a state of war actually between them. And therefore, in the end, everybody gets hurt one or the other, not necessarily in equal degree. At the moment, I would say again, the point made here earlier on, which I want to reinforce, is the case for avoiding situations where we can have to go up to the dispute level. Because also the IGRTC, the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, does look at alternative dispute resolution. We are very keen to avoid the point at which dispute arises. A case in point at the moment is a potential dispute between our simmering dispute between the county government of Taita Taveta, Kenya Wildlife Service, and also by extension, therefore, the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Obviously, that is not a simple matter. It has to do with the revenues. And you know where money is concerned, everything is very passionate on both sides. But also, it has also to do with human wildlife conflicts and who manages that and so forth. And we have engaged as the IGRTC already, the county government of Taita Taveta, to start having a sense of what their new grievance is. And we are now waiting for the ministry or new minister, the cabinet secretary for tourism and wildlife to settle down. And we hope then that we can have a process through which also the national government states its case. And the important thing again, in all these disputes, which especially in the public domain, is to remember that, whether you are in national government or you are in the county government, you exist to serve Wanjiko. You don't exist to serve yourself, whatever position you have in government. Therefore, a lot of disputes can actually be, avoided and resolved. Having said that, let me say the IGRTC is Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee is established by an act of Parliament, the Intergovernmental Relations Act of 2012. It was as prescribed in the Constitution that such an act would be put in place with the might that the provision in the Constitution, I believe Article 189, that says the national and county governments should work together through processes of consultation, cooperation, and coordination. Should be supported, that doctrine in the Constitution should be supported by an act which helps to manage that relationship. The Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee was established essentially to avoid a situation where it is only in extreme cases that the national government and the county governments, the governors and the president, have to resort to the judiciary to resolve their disputes. That, of course, has not stopped that from happening. At the same time, we have also the responsibility, therefore, to facilitate those consultations, to encourage them, to promote that cooperation, that coordination between them. The IGRTC is established on the dint of Section 11 of the Act, and the functions are provided in Section 12, 13, and 33 of the Act. Now, when I talk in such forums, I don't like talking, as a panelist, I don't like talking from a written script, but today I knew I was meeting random people. So I made sure I put down my points so that I'm not wrong. Now, the supreme organ which has been actually been established by the Act to avoid to resolve these conflicts is the National and County Governments Coordinating Summit, where the President and the governors are supposed to sit together at least twice in a year, look at the issues that are arising between their different agencies. You know, the governors have many organizations also these days. The same, the President has his ministries, his state departments, his state corporations. So in the ultimate, that process of going to that summit should be exhausted before a dispute actually goes to the courts. But for whatever reasons, these institutions have not been performing as well as they are supposed to. And what we anticipate under the new leadership and the new dispensation is that disputes will come to the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. As I indicated, we'll be trying to resolve them before they go to the next level. But if we cannot resolve them, then we go with our viewpoints to the summit of the President and the county and the governors, and we hope it can be resolved there. When that is exhausted, then go to the judiciary and get the problems resolved there. That is the final court, not the other way around. What we have had is a number of questions where the county governments and have taken state corporations and ministries to the courts, and we have under a number of cases referred back to the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. But also I can say with a sense of satisfaction that most of the cases which have been in court lately between the county governments and the state organs, the national government, ministries, departments, and agencies have lately been withdrawn and referred to us for alternative dispute resolution. Now, I'll just take a few minutes to talk about the nexus between the Environmental and Lands Court and the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee and what opportunities we see for cooperation or collaboration. While the Constitution is cognizant of the architecture of the devolved system of government as distinct and interdependent in nature, it is also aware that the implementation of the devolved system of government will inevitably entail some disputes, that the relationships cannot be perfect. And that's why under Article 189, subsection 3 of the Constitution, there is a provision for intergovernmental relations dispute. The only reason, Honorable Facilitator, I'm repeating this is because I know we have many learned friends in this in this audience, and I want to give them the flavor of what they have looked to, the particular part of legislation. And as I indicated, this, of course, is as required by the Constitution, at least in its spirit, and to a good degree also in the letter and spirit of the Constitution. The section Article 159 of the Constitution, on the other hand, also engenders the use of alternative dispute resolution by providing that one of the principles guiding the judiciary is the promotion of use of alternative forms of dispute resolution, including reconciliation, mediation, arbitration, and transition dispute resolution mechanisms. So that's what IGRTC, that is a space where IGRTC wants to be of service to the judicial system or the justice system in the country. The emphasis on resolution of intergovernmental relations is aimed at preserving the relations between the two levels of government and between county governments for purposes of efficient, effective, and uninterrupted service delivery, and also to minimize the potential public expenditures because the disputes, given the magnitudes of the assets and revenues in dispute, they can be quite expensive if addressed differently. Let me also say that Some of the disputes, of course, arise because of what has been happening with regard to the assets which the county governments inherited from the district, the county councils and the municipal and town councils, and also the city councils, before we got the new devolved system of governance. In that regard, it is unfortunate that we have one task which was prescribed to be undertaken by the Transition Authority, which they were not able to do, which we inherited as IGRTC in 2015, but which over the past 7 years has also not been completed. That is identifying and verifying all the assets which the county governments inherited. It's a process which has been going on for lack of resources, in spite of pleading for it. I think in the same way the judiciary used to plead for resources. We never got the resources to do what is required, because this is a multi-agency activity. We would require Ministry of Lands to provide us with the valuers, because the alternative is, of course, to use a private consultants or private firms. This would involve several billion shillings probably, if not several hundred million shillings. At least when it was initially indicated, it was suggested it would cost, using private consultants, 2 billion shillings. We requested for 300 billion shillings. We have received 110. We have used it to do almost part of the work. If we got the rest of the balance, about 200 million shillings, we would finish it in 3 months. But you know, in government, something can be stopped even by 100,000 shillings, which involves billions of shillings. So we haven't finished that exercise. It is ongoing, and we expect that we'll have the budget allocation soon, and we hope that by the end of this fiscal year, we'll have finished that process of identifying and verifying the assets that were inherited. And in that process, therefore, we'll be able to identify what belongs to the county governments and what also belongs to the national government. In things like housing, for example, you can appreciate in many towns, it has not been clear which of the offices should have been inherited by the county governments and which of the offices should have been inherited or should have remained in the national government after the county governments disappeared. Those are issues which we are trying to address, and we hope they can be addressed fairly soon. In terms of partnership between the Environment and the Lands Court and IGRTC, we would say the inventories that we are undertaking, the inventory taking, will provide a clear guideline to stakeholders, including the ELC code on the use, occupation, and ownership documents of public land and buildings, and thereby make decision-making easier, and at the same time safeguarding these assets from illegal allocation and encroachment, whether that comes through lack of facts or misrepresentation of facts by advocates. In terms of the impact on safeguarding national resources, through the identification of their public assets and liabilities, the 2 levels of government are now aware of their worth, thus promoting transparency and accountability. You can hold the county government to account. They are also able to secure updated ownership documents for the public assets vested within their jurisdiction. This has not only enabled the respective levels of government to secure public assets, but also will provide an opportunity to undertake projects on the identified assets without disputes. Because when you don't have titles and you start doing things as a county government on those pieces of parcels of land or dismantling buildings, there is potential liability, and it is not good in terms of public interest. We are also seeing an opportunity in terms of steering policy and legislative reform. There are a lot of disputes which arise because many of the laws which were governing state corporations, Kenya Railways Act, I don't know whether there is KPLC Act, but there are all those kind of acts which were there in the past, the Regional Development Authority Acts and so on. They were there before county governments came in. Even within ministries, discussing with the governors yesterday, and the CS for Health, there are still many acts in the Health Act which are not consistent with the demarcation of laws and functions between the national and county governments. They have not been changed. We are in a process of, which I would say, fortunately has been partly sponsored by the ICJ, to identify the laws and the policies and acts of Parliament which need to be changed, in this case in the health sector, but we are going to be trying to do it all around the place, which then will remove the ambiguities in the interpretation of the law regarding some of the disputes. Because as we say, the acts are not consistent with the Constitution, but on the other hand, from an operational level, that is what those organizations have been relying on for whatever they have been doing over the years. And I suppose the cause of a difficult time trying to balance between the judicial objectivity and the operational practicalities, the realities on the ground of what needs to happen. So we see a partnership between the Environment and Land Court and the IGRTC. In undertaking their respective functions, the court and IGRTC find themselves working in a collaborative manner in as far as the resolution of intergovernmental disputes is concerned. Where intergovernmental disputes are found at the ELC court for resolution, the court is required to refer parties to the IGRTC for purposes of amicable resolution through mechanisms of ADR, alternative dispute resolution. This position has been reiterated by Honorable judges, learned judges Mombi and Oguto in International Legal Consultancy Group and another versus Ministry of Health and 9 others, where the court held that after considering Article 189, subsection 3 and subsection 4 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and sections 10 to 35 of the Intergovernmental Relations Act of 2012, it is apparent that all disputes between the two levels of government should be resolved through a clear process established specifically for the purpose by registration, a process that emphasizes consultation and amicable resolution through processes such as arbitration rather than an adversarial court system. It is the view of the learned judges, it was the view of the learned judges, that the legislative intention was that the judicial proceedings would only be restored once efforts at resolving the dispute in accordance with the Intergovernmental Relations Act have failed. This, of course, has impact on safeguarding national resources. When IGRTC conducted some exercise some years back on what it costs to do these things through private litigation, it was found that the cheapest case was 60,000. The other case which we are looking at was going to cost the county government at least 200 million shillings. I think I would just say the point I think is clear that the two levels of government need to work together. I'm conscious of time. So let me say, in conclusion, the Constitution calls for cooperation by different government organs and agencies with the aim of protecting the well-being of its citizens. This is, in fact, the sense of the distinctiveness and interdependence enshrined in the Constitution. In undertaking their respective mandates, the two institutions, IGRTC and the ELC Court, the two institutions will continue to work together in a complementary manner to ensure that we serve the interests of the Kenya citizen in terms of improving access to justice, but also in terms of minimizing loss of public resources. We look to the continued cooperation between our committee, the IGRTC, and the judiciary through its various arms, such as the Environmental and Lands Court, as well as the Constitutional Court. This is indeed the spirit and letter of the Constitution, and in that regard, we are very gratified as IGRTC that we have been given the opportunity to share this forum with the eminent participants in this forum. Thank you very much.
A round of applause, a better one. Thank you, Mr. Kiragu. I pick from you that you underscore the importance of consultation and coordination between the two levels of government. At the courts, our position is that where there is provision in law that disputes are supposed to be handled by other agencies, before the jurisdiction of the court is invoked, we will give space for that resolution first before there is judicial intervention. We continue to learn on how we can work together. You've mentioned corroboration between the ELC in terms of ensuring that those matters that are not supposed to be handled in court are sent back to yourselves for determination, and embracing ADR as a mechanism. Actually, we are all here to serve Wanjiku and Mweni and Otieno, so that we don't look at whether if there's a dispute between this county government and the national government, we rush to court. At the end of the day, there's a lot that is lost, and that does not serve the interests of Kenyans. We want to move on because of time. I can see our time is moving. We will go to Mr. Kangi from the Ministry of Interior. And I would request you to respond to what do you see as the role of the ELC in safeguarding the management and sharing of national and cross-border resources. What would you define the role of the court, in your view, as in terms of safeguarding the management and sharing of national and cross-border resources? Remember that these resources are scarce. That is why we have conflict. When you see people fighting over water, when one county is interfering with the atmosphere of the other in terms of pollution, what is the role of the court? Thank you so much. You are welcome.
Thank you very much, Honorable Moderator. Firstly, I would want to say that I'm very happy today to participate in this discussion on land. because land is so pertinent in this country. Even when the quest for independence was coming, it was largely based on the struggle for land. Even after independence, we have seen some serious conflicts between communities, and largely these have also been on account of disagreements over land. Also, you remember that the discourse on climate change and its effects on the environment, a few years ago, it was largely a discourse in science. Now it is in the social balance because of its effects on social order. The disputes arising out of that, the matters of land, and the consequences of effects on environment happen to land in the ELC code. And therefore, the ELC code is very central in the stability of our country, in the security of our country, and it's very central to social order. And therefore, I'll put forward a few points in form of provoking a discussion on this matter, mainly as a practitioner in resolving disputes in the field alongside other government officers. We see the ELC code as a code that should go beyond looking at the statutes only. Of course, we are in a conventional space where the rule of law is the way to go. However, we are seeing disputes that are escalating to become conflicts. And when they become conflicts, they attract the attention of the national security organs and also the government in general. So when these matters later go in the hands of the ELC, at times the application of law ignores the socio-cultural background that culminated into the dispute. These are matters that would ask the ELC to bend backward and bend forward as it determines such disputes, to look into those socio-cultural backgrounds that may have been ignored and led to those disputes. Indeed, when you look at the coastal region, just to give us an example, we used to have the Kaya shrines that were used by the local communities as places where they would go for prayers. But during the adjudication, or land adjudication, and land adjudication is quasi-judicial in that it is placed in law. You'll find that some social and cultural values were ignored by officers on the ground to an extent that those areas that were supposed to remain as community lands or in the hands of the community were subdivided and given out as private land. This generates disputes. When they go to the ELC, in many instances, we have seen that social cultural aspect is ignored, and therefore the dispute is never resolved. It remains now pitting one person against the community a person holding a title deed and then the community claiming usage of that parcel of land. And it is the same all over. May I go to the next area where we see ELC coming in? This is an area where we see a dispute between government and communities, or people who have settled on public land. The dispute goes to court, and the court says now this land reverts back to government. So you look at the number of people who will have to lose a place to settle or a place to live, and the court has said that these people must move. And that's fine because this is a public interest. But when it now comes to the right of the person who is being moved out, the court does not give orders to government to mitigate the problems of the person who is being evicted. And therefore, that puts the government into a conflict with the people who also have an interest in that land because they also belong to, they are also members of public. And therefore, to avoid that conflict, the court should actually check and see what to order the government to do to its satisfaction, so that by the time this person is being evicted, the person is taken care of in a humane way, and the government is not put into a conflict with its citizens. Moving forward, we would also want to look at the issue of the protection of public interest. Now, we have seen situations where court has, in its discretion, looked at the private person, and rightly so, and provided for the rights of that person. Unfortunately, when you look at the right to occupy land and the occupation of land and time, again now, the members of public have a problem with the individual who has been given a right by the court. So, in order also to address that, the ELC court should be invited as regularly as possible to visit those areas where matters have been put in their hands and they are between a private person and many individuals who are occupying land, so that an alternative way of handling that matter, an alternative way, perhaps better than just an order to have people vacate, can be found. Of course, I'm aware of the ADR and other mechanisms, but in most instances, the ADR may not be valued by a private person who is seeking to have people occupying their land. And therefore, the ELC court should be able to be visiting to verify facts and used in court, so that they are able to give justice, to dispense justice, justice that can be seen as real justice. Now, the other area where we see the ELC court partnering with government is on the area of public education. Of course, the court or judiciary has public clinics that happen, I think, annually. But this is not enough. If we are going to have an educated population on matters of land rights, we need to see the ELC court coming out more regularly to meet with the stakeholders and to meet people, and even to identify specific places where knowledge of law on matters of land is scanty, and have some education imparted to these people. And the same should happen to government officers, particularly the lower cadre officers, who handle myriads of land disputes, and many of them don't even go to court. So those chiefs, assistant chiefs, and land officers who are on the ground, including police officers, they should get paralegal education, which should come through the ELC court, so that we can have more accurate and decisions made, decisions that do not conflict with the law. Finally, we also see the ELC court partnering in government, particularly in those areas where we have disputes between communities, whether within a county or cross-border. In many instances, when disputes escalate to become conflicts, ultimately a consensus is struck by the communities, and they agree on how they are going to live. Unfortunately, this mutual consensus can be broken very easily by other actors in that space who may want to engage in other interests. And therefore, it is our view that the ELC court should devise a mechanism that adopts the decisions of the consensus building mechanism of communities into valid judicial decisions, so that they can form precedents that will help the law enforcement agencies to keep law and order. Those are the few points that I was wanting to share with you as a practitioner in that area of dispute resolution, where we see the ELC court partnering with us. Thank you.
A round of applause for him. Thank you, Mr. Kanki. What I get from you is that the court should go beyond doing it as an adversarial system and have some aspect of inquisitorial approach to dispute resolution. You're also saying that since the court is central to the stability of the country and to the social order, it has to see beyond the statutory provisions in the books, the black letter law, and weigh the impact of its decision on the people who are getting the decision. I've also heard you talk about the fact that the court should look at the social cultural context of its decisions, and also consider partnering in terms of empowering the public to understand what goes on. You've also talked about when the communities agree. Of course, the court, once it has weighed that the consensus meets the constitutional threshold, it should be able to adopt such agreements. Thank you so much. We are now, we don't have much time. We now want to have our brother, Mr. Honorable Hamilton Parseina from Kajiado, the CEC member for land. And this is what I would request you to respond on. How has the AJS model in your county been used to safeguard national and cross-border resources? How has that method of resolution of resources been helpful in your county? If you can share with us so that we can also have lessons to take back to our counties. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, moderator. And first of all, allow me to commend the Deputy Chief Justice for promoting the Maasai attire I think it will not be, I don't think I will be out of order. Two, we have the sensibilities to note that people are getting fatigued, so I'll spend very little time in my response. And having listened to speakers from Tuesday to today, this panel has the advantage of capturing the key points that were brought forth, so that in our contribution, we can have a contribution that perceives the bird's eye view. And I've been keen on looking at the compositions of the delegates. And I realized there are very few politicians. And maybe that is a characteristic of the judiciary, which is always very civil in their civility. And so you may also allow me to digress, but within the confines of protocols, as I make my contributions. I'll be able to speak into the AJS in regard to my county, Kajiado, but allow me to make a few observations, having listened to a number of speakers. And my entry point is the contribution made by His Excellency the Governor of Kilifi, Mheshimiwa Mung'aro. Yesterday, he complained a lot about the land control boards. And I think it is worth reflecting, because laws don't exist in a vacuum. And they are largely driven by politics and vested interests. For those of you who are old enough, like me, when we were doing the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010, you remember how people were going back and forth, trying to reach consensus. And our arriving at the 47 counties, it was not an ideal number. Yeah, I think they should have been much fewer if they were to make economic sense. But because of vested interest and people talking about my community, we ended up having 47 counties. And so that also is the same when it comes to any formulation of any law. And therefore, I have been listening people make their contributions, people being frustrated, like there was that Baba Wetu kutoka Pwani, who also lamented about the squatter problem at the coast. And if you look at it keenly, there are key salient points that we need to look into, so that we also know that we are operating in an environment both political and ethical. And if you go back during the colonial time, you will remember that when you look at the land laws, one poignant aspect of the law clearly stated that first registration cannot be challenged. And for many decades, until we got the new constitution, communities were unable to get redress in court because of that particular aspect of the law. That speaks into the point that was brought forth by Mzee wetu kutoka Coast. There is the Mazurui Land Trust Act. And that's why we are having all these quotas in Coast. That is a law that is in our statutes. It is repugnant, and it is important that we begin to pick some laws that are in our statutes that are dragging us behind and denying our people justice. When Governor Mung'aro was speaking about the land control boards, and I know the Council of Governors, at one point, I went, I think, to court because of the composition of the land control boards. you realize that after the Constitution, you passed the Constitution, there are a number of legislations that came forth. But I don't think it was accidental that we never touched the act that established the land control boards. I think it was purposeful, and communities around the country continue to lose their land in conveyancing because of that one particular aspect of the law. Yesterday, I also had the privilege of listening the frustrations of the NLC in their role and their mandates. And when NLC was formed, because I'll come to the issue of justice, the AJS, because you will begin to connect AJS with the challenges people are going through on the ground. When NLC came on board, there was a lot of hope in the masses, and it came with a bang. But today, NLC is more of a shadow of itself. And remember that NLC came up with what was called the county land management boards. And those boards quickly took space and began to deliver. But some politicians who are MPs cleverly removed the clause that gave rise to CLMBs. I'm saying these things because if you are not acclimatized to the political environment in which we are operating, then we will be chasing a script that will have no end and will just be kept busy. The key areas this panel was to look into, because I'm coming to the AJS phenomenon, is the issue about resources, shared resources. And which are these shared resources? By and large, of course, land is central. And then we have water. We have sand, which is harvested in most of these semi-arid counties. And then, of course, green spaces, forested lands, and wind as well. Those are just a few of these resources. But you will, for example, realize that NEMA has a role to play in how these resources are managed or are utilized. But in one way, NEMA does not have the capacity to carry out that task. Maybe because of the resources that are allocated, so you realize they don't even have enough manpower. And so you realize that NEMA, for example, when an investor comes, the same organization gives the NEMA gives the same organization to go ahead and sponsor it to have the environmental impact assessment. So you wonder whether the same investor who is seeking to be given an approval will come up with an assessment that is going to negate his request or her request. And then the question you need to internalize and say, is it an intention of people in offices to deny NEMA resources so that they can continue to use it now as a rubber stamp rather than one that is going to play their role? These are the things that I wanted to bring out because I'm going out of my script, so that even as we sit down as ELC and so forth, we must always remember in the back of our minds that there is much more than legislation. There are thoughts that go into shaping the kind of legislations that we require. So we must be able to look beyond the text for us to interpret the laws that we have Because one thing is that we have a very dynamic, very forward-looking constitution, but you'll find some bottlenecks in the legislation that still exist in our books. And maybe those are we need to throw a spotlight into those aspects of the law that continue to exist and disenfranchising our people. Today I listened to Professor Ngoge speak about AJS, and I cannot agree further than what he said. Delegates, the way to go is to adapt AJS. As a county, we long took it upon ourselves to practice AJS, and we have seen a lot of results. Yesterday, we were told that judges, and that is the truth, and magistrates, they make their determinations based on the evidence tabled before them. But you ask yourself the question, the evidence that is normally tabled, is it true? In most cases, it's not. If you go, for example, to our registries across the county or across the country, you realize that there has been a lot of doctoring of documents, whether you are talking about the green cards, yeah, so that you will find a person with their own title deed in the house. Yeah, he may have been having that title deed for decades, but fraudulent officers pluck out the green cards and replace them with fake documents. And so these are the documents that are tabled before our courts. The hands of the magistrates and judges are tied to what is laid before them. They may not even have the capacity to interrogate whether it is a fraudulent or a genuine document. I remember maybe 2 years ago, in Kajiado, we had to close a whole registry, the Ngong Land Registry. And people made a lot of noise. Bankers, LSK, and common people. But we stood our ground until we had that office sorted out, because it was like a marketplace. But that is characteristic of the whole landscape across the country. So we can no longer afford to rely on documents that are brought from a number of offices. So for AJS, you realize, for example, in Kajiado, and I thank the Chief Justice for launching AJS in Kajiado, we formed 10 committees, because the Maasais in Kajiado are made up of 9 sections. They are more or less like sub-tribes. And then we have the 10th committee that is going to cater for the cosmopolitan Kajiado North, that is Ngong. So we have 10 committees. So when they are looking into such disputes, they know the history of the parcels. They even know the individuals. They can even look at their face and say, this is a crook. Yeah? And as we speak, 3 days ago, I received a report from one of the committees. And for the last 1 year, because we launched the AJS, I think September last year, they were able to determine and conclude 21 cases, and that is one committee. So you can multiply it by 10, and you can safely say we have over 150 cases that have been fully determined. So I am here to testify on the usefulness of going the AJS way. I remember there are some cases I would wish to point out. One, there was one that was determined in less than 10 minutes of 2 families fighting over property. But it happened that one family was being incited by some elements and being told that that parcel was yours. But then in the composition of the committee, there are people who knew the history fully. And when they pointed out these facts to one of the parties, they asked to be given a chance to go out and discuss. And they went out for less than 5 minutes. And they came back and said, surely it is not ours. Yeah? I don't think any court would have made that kind of quick determination. I also want to know one case, a matter that has been pending for over 30 years. Over 30 years. Because one family, the old man refused to take his title deed because he said, I was born here, I've lived here, and I have been living here for more than 50 years, so I don't need a paper in the name of a title deed to be given the ownership of this parcel. So he refused to take the title deed. And as time goes by, unscrupulous people went behind and produced that title deed in the name of another person. So for the last 30 years, that family has been living without a title deed. And it happened that it was, a lot of other parcels that were involved. So they were discussing about 4 land parcels, 4 title deeds. It is something that, legally speaking, you will not have been able, in the context of our judiciary, made a determination that was going to be in favor of the family, because everything else was done legally. And that dispute was brought before one of these committees. And in the process, to cut the story short, they came up with a resolution, and that family was given the parcel, and all the other parties were contented. Lastly, we bought that Tanzania. And you remember at one time, the government of Tanzania confiscated livestock, or the masses in their thousands, and they were to be auctioned at throwaway prices. But because of the good relations between the two communities, the Maasais on Kenyan side and the Maasais on the Tanzanian side, the Tanzanian Maasai people, they moved fast to purchase these animals. And they purchased at throwaway prices as the auction went, and they returned back the animals to the rightful owners. So that blood was extinguished. Lastly, we had a dispute between Kajiado and Taita Taveta, a dispute of land that existed even before independence. And I think in 2019, the two governors, both Kajiado and Taita Taveta, sat down, and I'm concluding now, and formed a committee. And within less than 2 months, that boundary dispute was resolved, and people already have their title deeds. So AJS, in short, delivers, and I would encourage the judiciary and all those who are concerned, all the parties, that we go the AJS way, and our people will be effectively given the proper services. Asante sana. Sorry for taking more time.
An applause for Mr. Parseina. Thank you so much. You have given us the story, the success story of Kajiado County, and we are happy that that is happening, and the resolution of cases is being done expeditiously. I want to thank all my panelists. It's a high-level panelist that has opened our eyes on the role of the court and other actors in the management of the national and cross-border resources of our country. Thank you so much. We can give them a round of applause. You can take your seats. Thank you so much. I will wish to welcome the facilitator, Commissioner Luanga. Thank you.
Another round of applause to that great, great panel. Awesome things, awesome things. And a great finish to 3 days. 3 days when we have had keynote addresses that have been unpacked in high panel sessions, and then that we have debriefed further in our breakaway sessions. Excellent discussions that are coming through, and I'm sure when we go to the next session, you will see what has emerged from all these discussions. It has not just been talk in vain, but it is talk that is going to result into something. So once more, let's give a round of applause for this awesome, awesome work. We recognize, of course, our very able DCJ. We welcome you to the session. Now, what I want us to do now is a promise that I made yesterday, that we would evaluate this conference so that we get better going forward. So I urge you again to go into your Google or whichever search machine you use and type Menti. Menti is MENTI.com. Menti.com. I hope you're there, because this is something you have to do live. Okay? So when you're there, the number, for those who may not remember from yesterday, is 77357124. 77357124. So please do the questions. We are going to be very, very grateful, because that will help us improve going forward. Now, at this juncture, I think that it will be important for us to now hear what has emerged from the discussions we've had thus far, and therefore, it is my very singular pleasure to invite Judge Anne Omolo to come and read. Oh, they've not finished. Sorry, apologies. Okay, so the questions are coming up. Name the session you found most useful and informative. Thanks. Name the session you found to be most useful and informative. Remember, again, like yesterday, you have 60 seconds. Then it will disappear. So please make your selection. What is your key takeaway from the conference? Thank you. Those are the questions. And now we need to remind ourselves of what has emerged from these discussions. So once again, join me in welcoming Justice Anne Omolo, who is coming to read the communique.
The Honorable the Deputy Chief Justice and the Vice President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, Lady Justice Honorable Philomena Mwilu, distinguished guests, delegates, all protocol observed, good afternoon. Following the 3 days of our stay in Kilifi at Pwani University, this is the joint communique from the stakeholders that have participated in this conference. So the joint communique of the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders of the court at the end of this 10th anniversary deemed ELC at 10 conference, 1st December 2022, Kilifi County. We, the Environment and Land Court of the Republic of Kenya and the national government, the county governments, development partners, the academia, private sector representatives, civil society representatives, all delegates, herein collectively referred to as stakeholders of the ELC, participated in the 10th anniversary of the conference, ELC at 10 held at Pwani University. Noting that the people of Kenya collectively decided to establish the ELC with a singular mandate of enhancing access to and effectiveness of environment and land justice to the people of Kenya, mindful of the challenges and injustices that the people of Kenya face with regard to the environment and land justice, which led to calls for and unanimous support for the establishment of the court dedicated to environment and land justice. Sensitive to the plight of the vulnerable categories of persons who are usually the most affected whenever there's disruption of their lives and livelihoods as a result of interruption of the enjoyment of their environmental and land rights, committed to the pillars of the strategy and vision of the judiciary of social transformation through access to justice, STAJ, and its transformational pillars, aware that Article 60 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 lays down clear principles of environmental and land management, which include equity, efficiency, sustainability, and productivity. Further aware that Article 42 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 provides for the equal right of every person to a clean and healthy environment, which includes principles of intra-generational equity and other obligations relating to the environment. And acknowledging that the United Nations General Assembly on 28th of July 2022, during its 76th session, took the step of recognizing the human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as a universal right to human being. Recognizing that effective protection and facilitation of environmental and land rights are connected to the enjoyment of other fundamental rights and freedoms, and that the full and effective realization of environmental rights and land rights can unlock a bundle of all other human rights. Appreciating the efforts and progress that the ELC has made over the last 10 years in terms of enhancing access to justice in environmental and land matters in Kenya, in particular, the declining caseload at the ELC. Conscious of the ever-changing landscape and emerging areas and issues related to the administration of the environment and land rights, and the attendant need to develop, maintain, and sustain capacities necessary to ensure the effective judicial and institutional responses to the dynamics of access to environmental and land rights. Further conscious that the deepening of partnerships and linkages between the ELC and stakeholders, starting with members of the public, is not just desirable, but critical to the development of capacity for effectiveness and to facilitate the realization of environmental and land rights in all its facets. Desirous and keen to address the contextual, cultural, and structural factors and issues that lead to gender-based injustices and inequalities in access to and environmental justice, and drawing from the themes of reflections for the ELC at 10 conference, deliberations, the emerging solutions and action agenda, the Environment and Land Court and the partners have agreed on a common agenda and mutual commitment to strengthen and enhance access to environmental and land justice as follows. Number one, enhancing inclusiveness in environmental and land governance and justice. And this, the action will do the following: the national government, the county governments, the ELC and development partners commit progressively eliminate the obstacles and barriers that hinder equal access to justice and the full and equal enjoyment of environmental and land rights. Number 2, the ELC and stakeholders will develop means and arrangements to facilitate access to environmental and land justice to the most vulnerable persons and groups or communities. And number 3, the ELC and stakeholders will regularly review the steps taken in the environment and land sector to enhance inclusiveness in the access to justice. Number 4, ELC commits to the development of benchmarks and targets for the progressive expansion of the coverage of the court services in order to enhance access to justice. The national government commits to allocate resources for the expansion of the court infrastructure in order to enhance physical access to courts and realize the judiciary's vision on access to justice. And the action or the key people to do this is the national government, the county governments, parliament, ELC, and partners. Second action point to be taken is deepening partnerships and stakeholder engagement in environment and land justice. So the ELC and stakeholders commit to continue deepening partnerships and identifying linkages, purposes of enhancing access to environmental and land justice. Number 2, the ELC will work closely with other courts and judicial bodies where necessary to enhance effectiveness of the Environment and Land Court. Number 3, the ELC, in collaboration with stakeholders, commit to maintain and expand its outreach and public engagement programs. Number 4, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders will develop mechanisms to regularly review the status of the partnerships and the impact on the core roles of the court. The action people, the Environment and Land Court, the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, the National Land Commission, county governments, national government, and development partners. Number 3, building capacity for the effective administration of environmental and land justice. The Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to identify and support areas of capacity development of the court, including mobilization of resources. The Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to focus on climate justice, climate governance, and related processes. Number 3, the Environment and Land Court will work with the Kenya Judiciary Academy and the judiciary leadership to develop tailor-made training programs on climate justice for judges of the Environment and Land Court. So the key actors on this part is the Parliament, the National Council on the Administration of Justice, the Kenya Law Reform, the Office of the Attorney General, the Environment and Land Court, and the Council of Governors, plus development partners. Gender responsiveness in environmental and land governance justice. The Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to the progressive elimination of barriers and obstacles that hinder the full and effective enjoyment of environment and land rights by women and girls. Number 2, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to regularly review and report on progress in addressing the barriers and obstacles to gender justice in the environment and land sector. Number 3, the Environment and Land Court commits to capacity development and training of judges of the Environment and Land Court on the gender-related aspects of adjudication of environment and land matters. And number 4, the ELC and stakeholders commit to the development, adoption, and integration of institutional level gender mainstreaming in environmental and land governance and justice. The key actors: national government, county governments, Environment and Land Court, National Gender and Equality Commission, the National Council of Administration of Justice. Expansion of alternative dispute resolution and alternative justice systems in environment and land justice. Number 1, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to the continued implementation of alternative justice systems and different forms of alternative dispute resolution processes in the ELC courts across the country. Number 2, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to capacity development of the ELC and the institutional support to enhance the judges of the ELC court. And number 4, The Environmental Land Court and partners will explore ways of building a repository and resource center of knowledge and information, particularly in emerging areas of environmental and land justice adjudication. The key actors, the Environment and Land Court, the National Land Commission, Kenya Judiciary Academy, national government, and development partners. Second last, we have uptake of technology to facilitate access to environmental and land justice. Number one, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to the progressive uptake of technology in environmental and land governance in order to enhance access to justice. Number two, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to the elimination of barriers to the uptake of technology in the environment and land sector, and specifically address the underlying factors that prevent access to technology by vulnerable persons and groups. Number three, the national government and development partners commit to mobilize resources for capacity development and uptake of technology in the Environment and Land Court. The key actors, national government, development partners, and the Environment and Land Court. And lastly, legislative, policy, and institutional reform for effectiveness. Number one, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to jointly identify gaps in the laws, policies, and regulations of the court and pursuing reform to enhance effectiveness of the court. Number two, the Environment and Land Court commits to engage Parliament, the National Council on Administrative Justice of Kenya, the Kenya Law Reform, the Office of the Attorney General, on identified areas for legislative reform. So signed by the National Land Commission, NEMA, development partners, the DCJ, will have the Deputy President and the respective authorities. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive, that clear reading of the communique that has emerged from the discussions we have had in the past 3 days. Thank you, Judge. A round of applause for the judge. Now I'll remind you again, for those who are not able to complete the evaluation, I hope that you did with the speed that was required. I know I moved a little faster. Now, as we come to the end of this session, before we go to the next, we will have our video of the children's sessions before this conference was held, the same one that we watched yesterday, just to remind ourselves again that even the voices of children are included in that communique, because we involved wider participation of the public even before we had these discussions that have gone on for the last 3 days. So let's have a round of applause for ourselves as we invite ICT to put up the video for us and as we wait for the next session. Thank you once more for your attention.
taifa letu tukufu, tumebadili mwendo. Tutalinda katiba mpya. Anayependa Kenya ni yule mwenye kutenda haki kwa watu wote. Mtu mwenye kutenda haki. Na ukipenda Kenya ujitengane na mambo yenye kuvunja amani. Hatutaki matata Kenya. Wenye nchi Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Wenye nchi Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Kenya kipenzi chetu, nchi yenye upendo, hatutaacha Kenya daima na milele. Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Wenye nchi Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Na nikienda nje sitasahau Kenya, na nitabaki Mkenya daima na milele. Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Wenye nchi Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Na tumeapa sote wenye nchi ya Kenya kutumikia Kenya daima na milele. Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Wenye nchi Kenya kipenzi chetu, hatutaiacha milele daima. Sitaiacha Kenya nchi yangu, mimi ni mwenye Kenya daima. Umoja wetu Kenya tudumishe, mimi ni mwenye Kenya daima. Sitadanganywa kamwe na porojo, mimi ni mwenye Kenya daima. Tushangilie Kenya, taifa letu tukufu, Kenya tunayoipenda. Kenya nchi tunayoipenda. Twajivunia sana tukijiita wa Kenya, nchi yenye baraka.
Sound check 1 2. Hello. Hello. Yes, sound check. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The chief guest that we have waited, His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, has now joined us. So any moment from now, he will join us here. And then when he comes, we'll start with the national anthem as well as the East Africa. Then we do the signing. So thank you, and may you be blessed.
wote mnaombwa msikize kwa makini. Ilikuwa Oktoba 52, watu wote tulisikia Kenyatta ameshikwa. Hakushikwa Kenyatta peke yake, lakini alishikwa na mabingwa wa huyu. Ilikuwa kilio nchini Kenya, watu wote tuliona huzuni mwingi sana. Wakina baba, kina mama na watoto wote walilia machozi wakisema woi, 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 tunataka Kenyatta achiliwe. Baba wa taifa alipotoka gerezani, aliwakuta jumbe wetu wametengana vibaya sana. Aliongoza wajumbe baka Ulaya, kufika huko alipigwa na mayai aliyooza. Mzee wetu wa kujali alishinda na kurudi na katiba ya nchi yetu hapa Kenya. Mzee wetu alituomba tusahau yaliyopita, badala yake tuijenge nchi yetu. Asante baba wetu, wengi we, asante baba wetu.
My message today is one people, one nation. Tribalism is a very bad thing because it brings enmity and discrimination. Different races, we should be united as one because
Mungu Baba twaomba kesho. Tusipochunga Vision 2030 itakuwa Vision 3020. Violin.
Bendera yetu Kenya ipeperushwe juu 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 sana. Trio mio, sisi wa Kenya tunawe. Na ipeperushwe juu sana. Ajeki ni mkurugenzi mzalendo, black, red and green. Najivunia sna maneno, young, fresh and free. Niko huru, raia bariani clean. Patriot before Mariga bebe Champions League. Kaza mlingoti bendera zipepe humwaka. Nasikia ripoti magari zinapita jumbaka. Moja ni nguvu si uishiki Harambee. Lazima magoti mapaja ndo upate mguu kaka. Mkenya halisi nasikia ifiche inaonekana kwa rahisi. Mboka inapigwa vile inafando vile naishi. Tutamu kuona vijana wajenga nchi. Juu sana bendera yetu Kenya ipeperushwe juu 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 sana. Sisi wa Kenya tunawe. Na tunaweza Kenya hutana. Ile siku tulipata madaraka tulisele. Proud hata siwezi eleza feeling. Na ndo maana tulipiga shangwe na nderemo. Wazalendo tukasare vako za beberu. Juu ya freedom fighter niko free filanga. Cheki around vile wa Kenya tumejipanga. Tunapendana kama ndugu tunajengana. Kushikana ndio mambo tunaduka wangwana. Ipeperushwe juu sana. Bendera yetu Kenya ipeperushwe juu 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 sana. Sisi wa Kenya tunawe. Na tunaweza Kenya hutana. Na ipeperushwe. Rais Kenyatta alituletea uhuru Kenya. Rais Moi akatuletea maziwa ya Nyayo. Rais Kibaki akatuletea masomo ya bure. Rais Uhuru ametuletea maendeleo Kenya. Rais Uhuru akatuletea ugatuzi Kenya. Daima mimi Mkenya. Oh Kenya. Naipenda Kenya. Oh Kenya. Ipeperushwe juu sana. Bendera yetu Kenya ipeperushwe juu sana. Sisi wa Kenya tunawe. Na ipeperushwe. Daima mimi Mkenya. Mimi uno piga shangwe na nderemo. Naipenda Kenya. Na tunaweza Kenya hutana. Juu sana. Bendera yetu Kenya ipeperushwe juu sana. Sisi wa Kenya tunaweza. Ipeperushwe juu.
Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Wageni mwakaribishwa Kenya yetu, hakuna matata. Jambo bwana, habari gani? Nzuri sana, wageni mwakaribishwa.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, kindly let's all be upstanding to welcome His Excellency the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. A hand of applause to His Excellency as he comes in. Kindly welcome Your Excellency. Kindly we remain standing for the national anthem as well as the East African anthem.
Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu,
Thank you, Your Excellency. Kindly let's all take our seats. Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Her Majesty, Honorable Justice Madam Philomena Mwilu, the Governor of Kilifi County, and all protocol observed. Allow me now to call the Deputy Chief Registrar, Judiciary, Mr. Paul Ndemo, to carry on with the remaining program. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katana. Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya and Vice President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Honorable Lady Justice Philomena Mwilu, the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, the Honorable Salim Mvurya, His Excellency the Governor of Kilifi County, His Excellency Gideon Mungaro. I see the Deputy Governor of Tana River County, His Excellency Mahadi Ali Loka, the presiding judge of the Environment and Land Court, His Honorable Justice Oscar Angote, the Honorable Justice Nambitha Dambuza, Judge of the Supreme Court of Appeal of South Africa and also the Chairperson of Agenel, the Honorable Justice Antonio Herman Benjamin of the National High Court of Brazil and the Chairperson of the Global Judicial Institute on the Environment, judges of the Environment and Land Court, honorable members of Parliament and other leaders from Kilifi County, other county leaders, the Vice Chancellor of Pwani University, Professor Mohammed Rajab, together with your Deputy Vice Chancellors, our development partners, distinguished panelists, judicial officers, staff of the Kenya Judiciary Academy and the judiciary, Pwani University students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I know it is very hot today, but we are delighted that we have come to the end of this very great conference that we have had over the last 3 days. Indeed, our chief guests, we can confirm that we have had very robust discussions around matters environment, matters land. We've held high-level panels, 7 of them actually. We've held breakout sessions where we've had different members going into 2 breakout rooms to discuss different matters more in-depthly. And we've also had a lot of informal consultations on matters land and environment. And indeed, this has been an excellent opportunity to engage across the length and breadth of Kenyans and indeed our friends from out of the country, whether it is the bench, whether it is the bar, whether it is civil society, whether it is the county government. We had the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee also represented. So we have had very robust discussions touching on matters to do to access to justice on matters of land. We have talked about public participation, issues on climate change, issues to do with alternative justice systems, and many, many other very interesting discussions. We've had excellent facilitators and panelists, as we said, very eminent persons from across the world just coming to share with us. And so we've had a very wonderful time here. And of course, we've really enjoyed the hospitality of the county, and we will be saying more about that. So as we proceed with our closing ceremony, it is going to be a brief closing ceremony, but a very interesting one. And we are very delighted and very privileged, Your Excellency, to have you here, come to grace this occasion. So as we commence this ceremony, we are going to have, I'm going to welcome the Honorable Justice Anne Omolo to take us through the highlights of the communique that has been developed indicating the outcomes of the discussions that have been held here over the last 3 days. We had gone into the details of the communique, but we are just going to have the highlights so that Your Excellency can have an idea of the things that we have discussed. Thereafter, we will have a round of remarks. Honorable Justice Anne Omolo, kindly.
His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Lordship, the DCJ, and the Vice President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, all protocols observed. At the end of this conference, the participants that included national government representatives, county government, development partners, the academia, private sector representatives, civil society, and all the delegates in this room came together, and from the various deliberations, summaries of the resolutions were put in this communique, and they said that they are mindful of the challenges and injustices that the Kenyan people face with regard to environment and land justice, which led for calls and unanimous support of the establishment of the court dedicated to environmental and land justice. And they are sensitive to the plight of the categories of persons who are usually the most affected whenever there's a disruption of their lives, of livelihoods as a result of interruption of the enjoyment of their environmental and land rights. And the ELC and the stockholders are committed to the pillars of the strategy and vision of the judiciary of social transformation through access to justice and its transformative pillars. And we are also acknowledging the international instruments like the United Nations General Assembly that passed in its 76th session of recognizing the right to clean and healthy environment as a universal human right. And so going forward, the Environment and Land Court, the government, the county government, the national government, the partners have committed that they'll enhance the inclusiveness in environmental and land governance justice. And one of the ways they'll ensure that is done is that the court and the stakeholders will regularly review the steps taken in the environment and land sector to enhance inclusiveness in the access to justice. The national government to commit to allocate resources for the expansion of the court infrastructure in order to ensure physical access to courts and they realize the judiciary vision of access to justice. The committee, that is the ELC and the partners, have also committed to deepen partnerships and stakeholder engagement in environmental and land justice. And one of the ways they'll do this is the ELC will work closely with other courts, judicial bodies, to ensure, where necessary, enhance effectiveness of the court, as well as partner with stakeholders to develop mechanisms to regularly review the status of partnerships that impact on the core roles of the court. And the key actors in this will be the Environment and Land Court, the NEMA, National Land Commission, national government, and our development partners. Number 3, the stakeholders and the court have committed to build capacity for the effective administration of justice in environmental and land justice. And one of the ways this will be achieved is through the Kenya Judiciary Academy and the judiciary leadership to develop tailor-made training programs on climate justice for the judges, as well as work with the support from the partners, including mobilization of the resources. Number 4, we are responsive to the gender needs in the Environment and Land Court, and through this, the ELC, that's the Environment and Land Court, and the stakeholders commit to regularly review and report on the progress in addressing the barriers and obstacles to gender injustice in the environment and land sector, as well as commit to the development, adoption, and integration of institutional level gender mainstreaming in environmental and land governance. And the key actors will be the national government, the county governments, the Environment and Land Court, National Gender and Equality Commission, the National Council on Administrative of Justice. We also commit on expanding alternative dispute resolution and alternative justice systems in environment and land justice. And this will be achieved by the ELC, the Environment and Land Court, and the stakeholders committing to capacity development of the ELC and the institutional support to ensure to enhance that is achieved, as well as explore, the court and the partners explore ways of building repository and resource center of knowledge and information, particularly emerging areas of environment and land rights adjudication. This group in this room have also committed to undertake uptake of technology in facilitating access to environment and land justice. And this will be done in a progressive manner, uptaking the technology in environment and land governance in order to enhance access to justice. Number 2, the Environment and Land Court and stakeholders commit to elimination of barriers to the uptake of technology in the environment and land sector, and specifically address the underlying factors that prevent access to technology, especially by the vulnerable persons and the groups. And we hope to get support from the national government, the development partners, and the court itself. And lastly, the legislative, policy, and institutional reform for effectiveness. So the Environment and Land Court and the stakeholders commit to jointly identify gaps in our laws, the policies, and regulations of the Environment and Land Court and pursue reforms to ensure or to enhance effectiveness of the court. And we also commit to engage Parliament, the National Council on the Administration of Justice, the Law Reform, the Office of the Attorney General, on the identified areas of legislative reforms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice Anne Omolo. At this point, with your very kind permission, Your Excellency, we'd like to immortalize this communique by having it signed, and I'm going to kindly ask the presiding judge who will come and sign, and with very kind permission, Your Excellency, the Deputy President. So we'll ask you to kindly come up front to sign this joint communique indicating the outcomes of this conference and the commitments that we have made as a result of the engagement that we have held here. Your Excellency, the Deputy President, please. Thank you very much. His Excellency, the Deputy President, has just signed the joint communique together with the presiding judge of the Environment and Land Court. Thank you very much. The Honorable, the Deputy Chief Justice has witnessed the signing. Thank you very much. You could have a photo moment with the joint communique. Thank you very much, Presiding Judge. Yes, let's have that photo moment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You may have your seats. Thank you. At this juncture, I'd like to welcome the presiding judge of the Environment and Land Court to make a brief remarks. The Honorable Justice Oscar Angote. Welcome.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, my Lordship, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, and the Vice President of the Supreme Court, allow me to adopt the protocol as laid down by Honorable Ndel, the Deputy Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, from 28th of November 2022 to today, the ELC has had a conference to commemorate the 10th anniversary since the court was established in the year 2012. Your Excellency, the conference was made up of eminent panelists and keynote speakers who discussed a myriad issues affecting the people of Kenya in matters environment and land. Your Excellency, our keynote speakers included Justice Antonio Benjamin of the National High Court of Brazil and Chair of the Global Institute on the Environment, Justice Brian Preston, the Chief Judge of the Environment Land Court of New South Wales, and Justice Ndambitha Ndambuzi, Judge of the Supreme Court of South Africa, and also the Chair of the Judicial Education Network on Environmental Law. Your Excellency, for 3 days, the panelists and over 1,000 delegates who are actually seated in this particular room, drawn from the users of the court and who are drawn from all over the country, discussed and made resolutions on matters pertaining to advancing green justice, governance, and law for environment and land management. Digitalization of land records was one of the issues that was also discussed, and it was actually a resolution of this particular group of delegates that digitalization is a panacea for improved land governance and sustainable development. The Environment and Land Court, Your Excellency, also discussed in this particular conference with the stakeholders the importance of public participation in decision-making and access to justice in environment and land matters. We also discussed issues to do with climate financing and climate justice in when it comes to the delivery of justice in these two particular sectors. Your Excellency, the judiciary as a guarantor of the protective benefits of the environment and land. Also, there was the issue of women rights, which was discussed at length, the issues of climate change, urban planning, disaster management, the nexus between land justice, crime and vulnerability in Kenya, and also the issue of building judicial capacity for environment land justice in Kenya was one of the issues that were discussed in this particular conference. Your Excellency, from the deliberations, it has become abundantly clear that this court cannot achieve its mandate of settling environment land disputes in this country without the support of the parliament, the executive, development partners, and other non-state actors who actually gave their robust views. It's only through our collaborative efforts that we will achieve justice, not only for the common Aisha, but the marginalized, the disadvantaged, and the downtrodden in all corners of our country. Your Excellency, what has emerged from this conference is the fact that the enjoyment of other rights are pegged and interrelated to the right to property and to a clean and healthy environment in all colors and forms. To achieve the universal justice pertaining to environment and land, we commit, or rather we've committed, to progressively eliminate the obstacles and barriers that hinder equal access to justice and the full and equal enjoyment of environmental and land rights. Your Excellency, we've also committed to develop means and arrangements to facilitate access to land and environmental justice to the most vulnerable persons and groups. And we've also committed to regularly review the steps taken in the land and environment sectors to enhance inclusiveness in access to justice. Finally, Your Excellency, we've committed to the development of benchmarks and target for the progressive expansion of the coverage of the environmental land court services in order to enhance access to justice. Your Excellency, we have signed a communique, and therefore I will not go through the other commitments which my sister Justice Anne Omolo has elaborated and which we have appended our signature to. I will end, Your Excellency, by thanking all the delegates who attended this conference, who facilitated this conference, and who gave their views which are going to serve the people of Kenya. I want to thank the steering committee of my able judges and members of the judiciary who actually put together this program and made sure that the conference succeeds. I'm specifically indebted as the presiding judge to my colleagues, Judges Nyao Sila, Kibunja, Justice Anne Omolo, Justice Christine Ochieng, Justice Jacqueline Mogeni, Justice Millicent Odenyi, my registrar, and all the members of the Secretariat, together with the members of the Kenya Judiciary Academy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Presiding Judge, for giving a summary of the outcomes and the deliberations, and also thanking your judges in particular. We'd like to move a more elaborate vote of thanks, and so let me at this juncture welcome the Honorable Justice Boaz Olao, who will move a vote of thanks. Thank you very much. Honorable Judge.
Thank you, Ndemo. Good afternoon. Your Excellency, Rigathi Gachagua, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Allow me, Your Excellency, this is a very momentous occasion for this court. I don't think it will be amiss if I call you Rigi G. The Deputy CJ, Honorable Philomena Mwilu, all the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I've been asked to move a vote of thanks, and I'll start, of course, through Your Excellency to thank the government for allowing us to have this occasion. We, of course, thank God for allowing us to come here in good health. We've been 5 grueling days in this hot place, but we are all in very, very good shape. We thank the judiciary, of course, through the DCJ for enabling us, allowing us to be out of the court. And our guests from South Africa, from Brazil, I wish you all the best in the World Cup. My colleague judges, the partners, I have a long list of people who have really helped us. And in fact, as we were seated here, they kept adding more. But because they have helped us to come this way, it is only fair that I mention their names in case they deny us funds next time. So there's the FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. There's, of course, the county government, Honorable Mungaro, Asante. There's the CPF, Financial Services, the UNEP, United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commission, the World Bank, IDLO, ACT, AWF, Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, NCAJ, Sharia Sacco, Kenya Commercial Bank, Kenya Post Authority, and Haki Jamii, sorry. I think we need to give them a big clap because it would not have been easy to organize a conference of this magnitude, DCJ, and I have information that the other courts are wondering whether they'll meet this bar, but you've told them that it's highly unlikely, considering the communique that you have just signed. And I'm sure the Deputy President will be with us. I would like to thank, of course, the partners I've just mentioned, the judges who put up this very, very fantastic event. I don't think I've had an event of this magnitude, Honorable PJ, so I think we didn't vote badly. So congratulations again. Pwani University and the students, they were very, very interactive in our sessions. During the breakout sessions, a clap for the students. And obviously that can only be because of they're in the very good hands of the DCJ, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Rajab. Asante sana, my brother Melchizedek ameniambia nikusalimie. All the panelists and facilitators were very, very, in fact, I think next time we need to have 2 weeks because I think the session we were having with Judge Okongo, we ran out of time. But I think it's an indication of how much this event has been received. Of course, the organizing committee and all the others who perhaps I may not have mentioned because of time, ninawashukuru sana watu wa Kilifi, na wakati mwingine tukiwa na hafla kama hii mtakuja kutusaidia. Ni sawa? Ni sawa ama tusije tena? Asante sana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Judge Olao. Indeed, we've really been helped by many, many people, and we are truly, truly, truly grateful for all the support that we have gotten. At this juncture, seeing as it is that we are in the county of His Excellency, the Governor, I will most humbly welcome the Governor to make a few remarks, and then welcome the Honorable Lady Justice to make her remarks, whereupon she'll welcome His Excellency the President. Welcome, Governor.
Thank you. The Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy Chief Justice, Lady Philomena Mwilu, the judges, all protocol observed, Your Excellency the Deputy President, the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. And may I take this opportunity also to appreciate each one of you for attending and participating in this conference. the different stakeholders and civil society groups under the theme Looking Back and Moving Forward on Environment and Land Justice in Kenya. The open courts also serve Your Excellency. In the last few days, we had also an opportunity. First of all, let me say thank you for giving us an opportunity to host the 10th anniversary of the Environment and Land Court Conference. We hope you have enjoyed your wonderful stay in this county. We had an opportunity, Your Excellency, also to interact with judges, the members of the public. We had open courts which served as a capacity building for these centers to educate our people on land matters, land justice, and mechanism to resolve land matters. As we are all aware, everyone has a right to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. As we strive to achieve this, to the impacts of climate change and environmental crisis continue to affect the rights and other fundamental human rights, such as food, health, shelter. Your Excellency, this conference has given us an opportunity to deliberate on how to navigate these challenges while streamlining land matters in the country. Some of the key emerging issues, Your Excellency, which were discussed is the digitization of land records. This will improve land governance. Increasing public participation in decision-making on land issues, ensure we involve our people as much as possible on these matters, especially women, and most importantly, our role as government to support and partner with the legal entities to ensure everyone gets justice, reduce land crimes in the country. Some of the key takeaways from this conference include the need to enhance collaboration between the judiciary, relevant actors, and environment sector, including but not limited to the executive, legislature, private sector, and non-state actors to promote and protect environmental and climate equity and environmental and climate justice. Adopt a set of recommendations from the deliberations here for continuous improvement and engagement with the court, which can be used in the future meetings to reflect on and see how we can continue improving and better, and also appreciate the current collaboration and cooperation with stakeholders and chart a way forward on how we can strengthen our collaborations to serve our people better. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a fruitful deliberations, and it is my hope that we will convert them to actions, and when we come together again, we will have impacted as many communities as possible. I would also like to, at this juncture, to ask the judges and the visitors who have come to visit us in Kilifi that after this conference, if you could stay behind and enjoy the hospitality of the Kilifi people, and say that we have so many things you can carry from this county, the carvings and many other things as you visit this place. So you can carry some gifts from Kilifi to your families back home and friends. And karibuni tena Kilifi. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming, Your Excellency. Asanteni sana.
Your Excellency, please I request you to come and welcome the Deputy Chief Justice. Thank you.
Asante. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the Lady Justice, the DCJ, to make her remarks and invite our guest, the Deputy President. Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, my colleague judges, I shall stand on the established protocol and proceed to talk to us in the following manner. It is my greatest pleasure to be here with you all on this most auspicious occasion as we celebrate and reflect on 10 years of the Environment and Land Court. It is for that reason that I shall ask that all the judges of the ELC and your fellow magistrates be upstanding. Congratulations to you on achieving a great 10 years of service, and happy birthday. You may now take your seats. On behalf of our Ladyship, the Chief Justice of the Republic, on behalf of the entire judiciary, and indeed on my own behalf, I sincerely thank you, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, for being present with us today. Your attendance today reflects the importance of the rule of law as a foundational principle in all matters environment and land. It adds impetus to our commitment as a judiciary and indeed as a nation to ensure that the rights and obligations under Article 42, to wit, the right to a clean and healthy environment, and Chapter 5 of the Constitution of Kenya are realized, promoted, and protected. My colleague judges and participants, you have had the most robust and enriching program over the past few days of your conference. The overall goals of the conference were to create momentum, to enhance land and environment governance, and to build a more just and sustainable world through strengthening courts to advance environment and land justice in Kenya. I sincerely wish I had had the opportunity to sit through the sessions at this novel conference. I was truly impressed by the germaneness of the topics and quality of the presenters and discussants. I hope that the presentations and discussions that arose therefrom will be suitably captured in some volume that will be shared with us, and particularly we in the judiciary, as well as the wider public. The benefit that has accrued out of this week cannot be gainsaid. I especially thank our special invited guests, Justice Antonio from the National High Court of Brazil. I captured a little of your speech on TV. The Honorable Mr. Justice Preston, who I am informed that I was not able to capture because then I was airborne, from New South Wales, and my sister, Justice Ndambuza, acting President of the Supreme Court of Appeal of South Africa, for your keynote presentations and sharing your knowledge and insights with us. Such exchanges of knowledge and experience, especially from other jurisdictions, will enrich and improve the administration of environment and land law, not just in Kenya, but across the region, and indeed the globe. Indeed, I am sure that the lessons, discussions, recommendations emerging from this conference will be useful for courts and practitioners, both within and outside of our jurisdiction. I hope it will not take another 10 years to organize such an important forum, and that the richness and utility of the discussions in this important area of the law would suggest the need for more regular engagements of this nature. Where are you, ELC judges? I will make sure that you don't get another symposium. Importantly, this forum is being held at Pwani University. I therefore urge our students here and across our educational institutions to take up the mantle of pushing forward and improving governance and the jurisprudence in matters environment and land. We need fresh and innovative approaches to dealing with the weighty environment and land challenges that face our nation and the world. And that's why I was very excited to hear what our brother from Kajiado had to say. I would place my hopes for bold and emancipatory ideas and paradigm shifts in the knowledge, the energy, and the learning emerging from our institutions of learning. We do not own the land. We do not own the environment. Those are not ours. We hold them only in trust for our future generations. Thank you, ELC judges and magistrates, for dispensing justice through these important courts. I urge you to continue to develop jurisprudence in consonance with the provisions of the Constitution and the law, jurisprudence that reflects the transformative principles enshrined in our 2010 Constitution. I have no doubt that thanks to your engagements over the past few days, you are even more suitably equipped in this regard. It behoves me to urge us to serve in pure and clean adherence to the oath of office that we took before we commenced the discharge of duty, the discharge of the mandate of us, the judges. Please avoid all vices at the workplace. Especially let us not, by whatever description and temptation, judge in lack of integrity. Let us discharge this delegated authority from the people, devoid of corruption and compromise. Land is life. The environment is life. That is why it is an emotive subject in this country. Let us therefore serve pure, unadulterated justice in each case. I thank everybody who has made it possible for us to be here, and you, the ELC judges, who are the reason that we are here for this wonderful week. And I pray that the Lord God will bless the judiciary of Kenya, that the Lord God will bless us all and bless the people that have allowed us to exercise their authority in passing judgment over them. Join me now in my privileged position to invite His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, to come and deliver his remarks and officially close ELC at 10 conference. Your Excellency, karibu.
Thank you. Please be seated. The Deputy Chief Justice and Vice President of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Honorable Justice Philomena Mwilu, Honorable Justice Angote, the presiding judge of the Environment and Land Court, my friend, the Governor of Kilifi County, the Honorable Gideon Mungaro, Honorable judges, the Vice Chancellor of Pwani University, members of Parliament, members of the academia, judicial officers and staff, distinguished and invited guests, good evening. God is good, and all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my humble pleasure to join you this afternoon for the closure of the 3-day Environment and Land Conference here at Pwani University in the great county of Kilifi. You have had fruitful engagements on the subject matter and realized the main objective of the conference in line with the theme of looking back and moving forward on environment and land justice in Kenya. The organizers of this conference brought together key stakeholders to bring not only ordinary hope to Kenya's land and environment governance sector, but also practical and actionable change for the good of the people of Kenya. As we mark 10 years since the establishment of the Environment and Land Court, allow me to recognize the stakeholders who include judges, government officials, civil society actors, representatives from the academia, our international development partners, and Kenyans who have debated and shared ideas about the past and the future of land and environment justice in Kenya. Their views are a motive of the 50 million Kenyans expect on matters access to justice on land and environment. I'm glad this conference has taken place some few days after the COP27 Global Summit in Egypt, where Kenya led Africa in making a passionate call to the global community to take action on climate change and mitigation measures. I urge you to take note of the outcome of the summit and leverage on this to revitalize your sector in line with the Constitution of Kenya. I urge that we also remain keen on Kenya's Vision 2030, the United Nations Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, particularly on sustainable cities and communities, climate action, and life below water and life on land. The adverse effects of climate change have affected our livelihoods, our food security is under threat, and so is our well-being. Our dignity as a people must be protected by each one of us through the simple actions that we take every day. Deputy Chief Justice, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the conference theme and objectives, I have no doubt in my mind that this conference has realized its objectives. I am particularly hopeful that the discussions on digitalization of land records, climate financing for the delivery of justice, women land rights, urban planning, and disaster risk management pricked the nucleus of the conference. We must lay strong emphasis to each one of us to have a clear mind on sustainability on matters climate change and adaptation strategies. We should do so in the full realization of what an individual or an institution can contribute to the cause. I call upon you to have in mind that environmental sustainability can only be achieved in the context of a fair, effective, and transparent enforcement of the law. This is key to the outcomes related to environmental sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, land and land governance is an emotive issue in our country. Socially, politically, economically, and legally. We all know from the colonial times there have been critical land injustices. I urge all the players and actors in this space to expedite justice in accordance with the Constitution of Kenya. As a government, we are looking forward to the implementation of the outcomes of this conference. Our doors remain open for consultation on matters that are for the good of the people of Kenya. It is now my honor to declare this conference officially closed. Asanteni sana. But I just add a little bit, it's just to say that I want to associate myself and the government of the Republic of Kenya with the issues that have been outlined in the communique and give the commitment of President William Ruto and the rest of us in his government to support the environment and land court and indeed the judiciary in your noble calling to dispense fair justice to the people of Kenya. We want to say that our new government, the Ruto administration, in our Kenya Kwanza plan undertook to facilitate and support an independent judiciary. On the day President William Ruto was sworn in on the 15th of September, 2 hours after being sworn in, he appointed the judges who had been denied a chance to serve because of parochial political interest. And the following day, they were sworn into office, and we are happy that those judges now have joined the other judges to expedite and dispense justice to the people of Kenya. Immediately the president was sworn in, he gave an executive order for the to operationalize the financial autonomy of the judiciary, to give the judiciary financial autonomy so that you are free to dispense justice without being twisted by any other arm of government. Again, the president and his new government committed to review the budgetary allocation to the judiciary by giving the judiciary an extra 2 billion shillings every financial year for the next 5 years. The purpose of that decision is to make sure that you are able to build more courts, employ more judges, more magistrates to expedite and finalize the backlog of cases that are pending. Justice delayed is justice denied. So as a government, we have every intention to make sure that the judiciary is allowed to work and work efficiently. You are all aware that after we made that decision to increase the budgetary allocation to the judiciary, to appoint the judges, to swear them in, to appear in such forums where you invite us, we have been accused of trying to capture the judiciary. I don't think anybody can capture the judiciary. If the judiciary had been captured or it was possible to capture the judiciary, William Ruto will not be the president of the Republic of Kenya. It is not possible. Ours is to support independent institutions, the judiciary being one of the most important institutions, and we shall continue to do so. And we find it inimical. We find it something that we can't understand how people who profess their respect for the rule of law and supporting independent institutions would have a problem with the government giving more money to the judiciary so that it can assert its independence. We don't understand. And we want to say we'll continue to do so. Finally, on land matters, I ask you good people, our judges and magistrates, please try to expedite the succession cases pending before you have tied billions of shillings that we need for our economy. Our economy is struggling. And this money, we needed to be freed by resolving the various disputes so that this money can circulate in the economy. Again, I want to ask the people of Kenya, when people have found themselves with the challenges before courts on criminal matters, and they place cash bails because of the urgency of the matter so that they don't spend time in remand prison, there exists an opportunity for you to go back to court and substitute the cash bail with a title deed or a logbook so that we can free that money to the economy. And we ask people who have pending matters where they have put cash bail, once they have gone home and they have settled, to look for substitute securities. And we ask our judges and our magistrates to exercise fairness and see how they can facilitate the substitution of cash bail to other forms of security so that we can free this money to the economy that we need. I want to say that our government will continue to support independent institutions. I want to give an undertaking to the people of Kenya. President William Ruto and I and the rest of us, none of us will ever pick a telephone or summon a judge or a magistrate and ask for them to rule in a matter one way or another. We must leave that to the courts. We also want to confirm that in our administration, we have no intention ever to weaponize the criminal justice system to settle politics. Politics we shall manage ourselves. We want the criminal justice system to exercise judicial independence and deliver justice to the people of Kenya. And our government will not attempt to use the criminal justice system to deal with its critics and those who may have different opinion from what we have. That is the undertaking that we want to give. Finally, we want to ask the people of Kenya to try to explore alternative dispute resolution mechanisms before they go before the Environment and Land Courts. Courts are very expensive and time-consuming. Many matters, if the litigants take time to talk to each other, to reach out to each other, 80% of matters before your court will never reach there. Let us attempt other alternative methods of resolving the disputes before we go to court, because courts are time-consuming and they are expensive. And if we do that as a people, we'll live in an orderly society. Kwa hivyo mimi nashukuru sana gavana wetu. Najua umetualika tukae hapa Kilifi, lakini tunatakana Nairobi, kazi ni mingi. Tutarudi hapa kuja kupumzika, si Christmas iko karibu. Tutarudi hapa kupumzika. Tumefurahia sana kwa kutualika. And our judges, I want to assure you, when you call us, we'll come. And we are not embarrassed to be associated with you, because you are doing a good job for the people of this country. President William Ruto and I are beneficiaries of independent institutions. So, mukituita tunakimbia, because we are beneficiaries. We want systems that are working. And we have benefited from independent institutions that have refused to be twisted and to be coerced. The IBC, the Supreme Court of Kenya, those are good institutions. And as we are happy, because if they had agreed to be twisted, I will not be here today. So when you call us to grace your occasions, we will come running, because we want to be associated with the good institutions, because they are good for the country. Kwa hivyo kwa hayo mengi, asanteni sana. Mungu awabariki. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy 2023. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We may kindly be seated for a moment. Thank you very much for your remarks, Your Excellency, and for your commitment to support the judiciary. Indeed, as we get support, the state of inundation of matters that we have, issues of will be resolved. At this point, we'd like to have some gifts. We'd like to have some gifts, and so I'm going to kindly ask the presiding judge. So I'd like to kindly ask the presiding judge, let's have the gifts. We will have them in quick succession. We are mindful of the time. So the first gift will be the presiding judge. This will be handed over to His Excellency, the Governor of Kilifi County, Governor Gideon Mungaro, for your hosting us. We are very grateful, and we'd just like to give a gift so that we appreciate your hospitality on behalf of the people of Kilifi. So the presiding judge will hand over that. Thank you very much. The next gift will be no, we assure you, Your Excellency, it is not more than 20,000. The next gift will be to the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice. Kindly, my lady, we'd like to acknowledge your commitment. You know you had to cut short your travel to be here with us, and we really appreciate. Thank you very much. I now most humbly wish to request His Excellency, the Deputy President, to hand over. We have our visiting judges from South Africa and from Brazil. And I think it is in order, Your Excellency, that you present the gift to them. So we'll first call Justice Dambuza to kindly come and receive a gift. This gift will remind you of Kenya. Thank you very much. Justice Antonio, kindly. Thank you, Justice Antonio. We also have given a gift that will remind you about our wildlife in Kenya and what we call a Maasai blanket that will keep you warm in the cold of Brazil. Thank you very much. We'd also, at this moment, like to again call the Honorable DCJ to please hand over a gift now to our chief guest, the Honorable, the Deputy President. Yes, Your Excellency, we have a gift for you that will be handed over to you by our Deputy Chief Justice. It is a boat signifying the place where we are, where we've held the conference. This will remind you about Kilifi, the 10th anniversary, and indeed this particular conference. So we have that together with the Maasai blanket. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'd now like to kindly proceed and have a cake cutting ceremony, which will be very brief also. I'd like to invite the presiding judge, together with the registrar of the court, if you could kindly just come and we have the cake cut to signify this 10th anniversary. So, thank you, the Honorable, the Deputy Chief Justice, together with His Excellency, the President, will cut the cake in symbolic celebration. Thank you. Thank you. The cake is now being cut to celebrate 10 years of the existence of the Environment and Land Court. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will have that cut for you. The temptation is too sweet to resist. Thank you very much. You may kindly have your seats. We will make sure that you get a piece of the cake. As we draw to the very end of our ceremony, we are going to have photographs after we have done the national anthem. We will have 6 photographs, and this will be the order of the photographs. We'll have the Deputy President, the Deputy Chief Justice, the CS Mining, the Governor, the Presiding Judge of the court, together with the ELC and the Deputy Chief Registrar as the first photo. The second photo will be the same composition together with the superior judges who are visiting us. The next photo will be including the development partners. The fourth photo will be the leadership of Kilifi County, that is any senator who may be here, MPs, and also the Deputy Governor of Tana River. The fifth photo will be with the leadership of the university, and finally, together with all the ELC judges. So at this point, I kindly request for us to be upstanding for the national anthem. The photograph will be taken on my left-hand side, just in front of the university entrance. Thank you very much. National anthem, please.
Mungu nguvu yetu,
ni fahari yetu, undugu ndio nguvu, chuki na ukabila hatutaki hata kamwe. Lazima tuungane, tuijenge nchi yetu, pasiwe hata moja anayetenganisha. Naishi na tumaini, najitolea daima Kenya. Hakika ya bendera ni uthabiti wangu, nyeusi ya wananchi na nyekundu ni ya damu, kijani ni ya ardhi, nyeupe ya amani. Daima mimi Mkenya, mwananchi mzalendo. Kwa uchungu na mateso, kwa vilio na huzuni, tulinyakua kunyakuliwa uhuru na mashujaa wa zamani. Hawakushtushwa na risasi au kufungwa gerezani. Nia yao ukombozi, kuvunja pingu za ukoloni. Naishi na tumaini, najitolea daima Kenya. Hakika ya bendera ni uthabiti wangu, nyeusi ya wananchi na nyekundu ni ya damu, kijani